YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video and share it if you can. And for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other podcasting platform, please follow and give us a 5-star review if you can. But before we do any of that, let's get into it straight away. We'll start with the Brighton Man United game. Very briefly, Brighton win 2-1 with a very late goal. I think it was the 94th minute. Joao Pedro back post header. Man United lose to Brighton in their second game of the season so far. Obviously, everyone was saying, it's a new season in Ineos. We've got, new owners. We're a different game. We're a different team. We're not in the mud anymore. We're back. Are you back, Ant? Because that performance on Saturday was not looking like you were back, mate. Talk me through it. How did you feel about the game? Do you feel like you deserve something from it? Obviously, there's like the disallowed goal, some other stuff as well. Like, how do you feel about the game in general? And do you think Man United deserve to lose that?
Yeah, so it was hard because I went to watch the Fulham Leicester game. So I was travelling into West London to go watch that 3:00 kickoff. So I didn't actually see the game live. I was just keeping up with it on live score. And then, obviously, when we got to the ground, I think it was the last few minutes, last 5-10 minutes of the match, when we were just getting into the stands. So I actually saw bloody Joao Pedro's winner while I was queuing up for a sausage roll and a pie. So that didn't make the beginning part of that game too enjoyable for me. I definitely went into it with a sour taste, but obviously I didn't really have the context of how the game was going. I was obviously looking at the stats and looking at disallowed goal here for Rashford, disallowed goal here for Garnacho, and a lot of the social media commentary was talking about how United generally were at least worthy of the draw, and I think dominated the match, or not dominated, but had the best of the match for the first hour or so, and then the last half an hour Brighton stepped it up and I guess kind of grabbed it with both hands. But yeah, it's a bit of both for me, because I feel like there are elements that are definitely different. The press, even some of the patterns of play, I can see some of those in our performance. But the way we ended this game was very reminiscent to how we ended many games last season under Ten Hag, and that was giving up late equalisers, giving up late goals to lose games that we should have never lost. Chelsea, I think, being the greatest one. I think we were winning going into like the 97th minute and managed to lose 4-3 in like 100 minutes or something ridiculous. So I think it's more of the same. So from that perspective, it's disappointing. I saw a stat that under Ten Hag, we've conceded 4 late winners, and that's double what we've conceded in the previous, from 2012 to 2022. We only conceded 2 in that same 10-year period. We've managed to concede 4 under Ten Hag in 2 years and a bit. So, and I would imagine the majority of them came last season, because there are just so many traumatic memories of Champions League, late defeats, late equalisers, giving up games that we should have never lost. Even Wolves, if you think about the game that we ended up winning 4-3, we were 3-1 up in that, and we gave away 2 late goals to look like we were going to, somehow manage to snatch a draw from the jaws of a victory, and then Kobe luckily saved us. So it's more the mentality that worries me, because, like I said, I do think the play has improved, and I do think there are patterns of play, and I feel like there's a lot of lazy analysis out there talking about United being the same, just looking at a late winner and then now a late goal conceded to lose. But if you look at the actual quality of the performance, I'm encouraged. But if I look at some traits that are still there, especially late in tight games, that's super worrying, because that's been a part of United pre Ten Hag, like looking like we aren't mentally strong in tough moments. That's basically been a trend all throughout post-Fergie Man United, I could say. Maybe only under Mourinho, I think, there were points where it looked like we had, cojones, as Troy Deeney says. But under all the other managers we've had, I think there's been kind of a soft underbelly. And I believe it gives other teams like the belief that they can score late goals against us. I can think of it happening twice against you guys. at the Emirates. And I can think of it happening again, obviously Chelsea, Champions League. So from that perspective, it's really disappointing, man. And it was not the best way to kick off the weekend of football and the long weekend in general, because obviously that 12:30 kickoff, if it's your team, and Liverpool fans will agree with me on this, considering they always get the 12:30. You need your team to win, or at least get a positive result. Otherwise, it really sets your weekend up to be a stinker. But yeah, what did you think of the game, mate?
No, I mean, I watched it live. I think it was pretty good for Man United, at least for the first, I'm going to say 50, 55 minutes. You guys were good. I know, obviously, they scored within that time, but generally speaking, you guys were, I'm not going to say dominating, but you had the better of it, right? You looked like you were going to be the ones to go on and win. And then obviously just the goal kind of dampens things a little bit. I think it's honestly not great play from your centre-backs. I'm going to put most of the blame on Maguire. But I even think like Mazraoui gets a little bit like for not really trying to get something on the ball before it goes through in front of goal. And then obviously I don't know there's that much that Martinez can do about it. So I'm not going to blame him too much because he's got two people on him, not really much to do. But I mean, from there, I couldn't see it going Man United's way, even if you were playing better, because I just felt like you don't, similar to what you just said, right? You don't really have that killer instinct that you used to have. And, you know, it was something that I used to hate growing up because I knew even if we were winning against you or somebody was winning against you, there was a chance that Fergie was going to do something and your team was just going to turn up and get a late goal. And it was just the mentality monsters of Man United that were really dominating the game. And I feel like now it's almost the exact opposite. And you kind of show a little bit of weakness and then you kind of just lose your heads in the last like 5-10 minutes. You just lose your heads. Everyone forgets about structure, forgets where they're supposed to be, and you just somehow concede a late goal. And I think the same thing happened here. And you're really unlucky based off of the two disallowed goals. Like obviously the first one was a bit fortuitous, right? Because Rashford shoots, he falls over, and it hits one of his feet behind him and goes back in. But the second one, I feel like it's such a weird circumstance. I don't think it happens very frequently, and I wouldn't expect to see it happen again for at least another 4 or 5 years. And I can only remember like a Nani to Ronaldo type of thing, but that was more like on purpose, whereas this seemed more like an accident. But it just didn't seem to go your way. So overall, I do think you're probably good. You played well enough to get a draw, but if you don't put your best foot forward and try, and if Ten Hag's not making the right choices for your starting 11, if he's making weird decisions in terms of taking off Bruno and bringing on McTominay, like you probably don't deserve to win it. So yeah, I just think it was another tight game. I do see differences. I do see Man United improving in terms of the way that they play, but it's not making a big enough effect on the pitch. And I know before it was kind of all like last year, it was all about results versus style of play, right? Like if you can just win, who cares how you play? Now it kind of seems like you care a little bit more how you play, but you're not able to get the results. So it's kind of like you've swapped things the other way around a little bit now, which is just weird. You need to find some sort of balance in the middle, right?
Well, last year I think we didn't do either. So I don't think we had the style of play, and we didn't win enough games. I think the season before that,
Ten
Hag's first season, I think there were sprouts of good signs, but the back end of the season left a sour taste in everyone's mouth because I think it definitely did become like a firefighting job where we were just trying to get results to make sure we got top four, and the like little signs of positive style of play that we saw in pre-World Cup and just after the World Cup to win the Carabao Cup, we didn't continue to see that. And then I think last season was a continuation of that. No style of play, results were a struggle, and it was what it was. And this season, I mean, it's still very early to make any calls on what way it looks like it's going to go. But in terms of the style of play, I'm not having this chat that it's the same old. And people that are talking about that are being lazy. They're just watching highlights, or they're just looking at things with their own lens to try and criticize, or they know it's going to create, a bit of an engagement farming situation where they know, United fans are going to bite and they're going to start, engaging with their content. But I don't think that's the case. And I think the substitution point's an interesting one because I saw Rio, I saw a few other pundits talk about, should keep Maguire on for his communication. He would have maybe stopped that second goal. The evidence was not there in that first half of that game, or for the whole 60 odd minutes or whatever Maguire played, 70 odd minutes or 80 minutes. He was shaky. And you're right, he was mostly culpable for the first goal. He should have blocked the first cross coming in, and then he should have again blocked the second cross coming in. I mean, it's not only on him. I agree with you. Mazraoui could have done a bit more to block the second cross coming back. I think there were a few incidents like that in the Fulham game that made me realise that Mazraoui is not going to be the ultimate block box defender. That's not his game. So I'm not going to put it too much on him. I don't expect him to be able to block every cross that comes in from his side. And, I think his overall play was good. But obviously, a better box defender would have probably blocked that cross, right? And yeah, Maguire's positioning was poor for both crosses coming in. And then, Martinez makes the wrong choice. So I think the blame on him is he's got a tough decision because he's got Welbeck and then he's got the guy behind him and he's stuck in two minds as to who to mark. And he goes for the wrong player. He goes for the guy, the player behind him instead of Welbeck. And obviously it falls to Welbeck, so it makes it look even worse. So yeah, all round, I don't think it was great defending. For the second goal, it's absolutely poor. And I mean, I've seen a lot of analysis about this, talking about how, Delo's at blame, some people blaming Casemiro, some people blaming McTominay. But the truth is, I agree with the idea that when you defend a corner, you obviously have a different defensive shape and your positions don't follow exactly where you play on the pitch. So, and then when the corner's cleared, but not totally cleared, and the ball's about to come back in for another cross, a lot of the time you stay in that same shape because obviously you don't have time to get back everyone into their match shape. So I don't blame Delo on that. He's obviously been asked to defend the back post from the corner, and then he's obviously going to stay at that post when the ball doesn't get cleared. There's blame for a lot of people. There's blame on Antony for pulling out on the 50-50. There's blame on whoever gets the ball and has a chance to clear it, but bounces it back again for Antony to even have the 50-50 in the first place. And then there's blame on Casemiro and McTominay, who totally vacate their position from the corner. So they go into their match play shape, or almost ready to counter shape, and they completely vacate the back post. So then it looks ridiculous because you've got Delo on the front post of the cross, but the back post from the corner. You've got Martinez and De Ligt tight because they're obviously defending closer to where the ball's coming in, and you've got that gaping hole for Joao Pedro and a couple of other men in the back post who could have all tapped it in. So all round, I think it was poor, and people have got a lot of blame. But I think some of these narratives, Maguire would have organised better and all that stuff, is rubbish. I think one of De Ligt's biggest positive traits is his communication, and I think we'll see that over time when he plays more with Martinez. I'm not going to say he's going to be flawless at all, but I think Maguire proved nothing in that game and in his Man U career to believe he would have taken our defence by the scruff of the neck and stopped the second goal. He literally didn't do it for the first one, so why would he have done it for the second one? I think there are a lot of pundits twerking for Maguire right now, and it stinks. For the disallowed goals, Rashford was just being caught offside all the time. I don't think he played super poorly on the ball, but what the hell? Can you not read the line, bro? You're not a youth player. Get your ass in fucking onside, mate. It was driving me up the wall when I watched back the game because I was like, Alan Shearer, for once, I agreed with his analysis. Normally, I think he's talking out of his own, but this time I feel like he was fair. Rashford is too old to be making these stupid mistakes. He needs to keep himself on side, and if he did, we would have had that goal, and he probably would have had a bunch of other chances. I get some of his frustration. People don't look to play that ball to him first time, but my God, man, keep yourself on side. You're reaching them Darwin Núñez levels of being called offside. Or Morata levels of offside, where they're literally offside every 5 seconds. You need to do so much better, otherwise you've got a whole bench. And for the Garnacho goal, we went back and forth in the group chat, didn't we? I feel like it's harsh to blame either of them, but I feel like it's harsher to blame Garnacho because that angle, I know it's an open goal, whatever, but that angle he can only put it in the direction of travel that he puts it from that angle on his left foot. Like he could have maybe gone round it and tried to hit it with his right foot, which would have made it easier to put near post, but he couldn't do anything more than that. And I think Xerxes, understandably, he's sliding in from the previous cross, right, from Bruno. So it's like he's not purposely done it. But I do believe someone with slightly faster reactions could have maybe pulled their foot away quicker, but it's very harsh on him. So I don't really want to blame either one of them. It just stinks because that should have been a goal, and it was another moment where we should have scored. And you could even probably look at Bruno with the pass across. If he gets that pass right, Xerxes scores. So he's got that pass slightly off the fact that Xerxes misses it. But yeah, frustrating, man. But I think we should talk about the subs and the starts because I think that's a big contentious point, right? I think a lot of United fans are going a bit wild and saying, why is Maguire still starting? We should be playing De Ligt. Why is Xerxes not playing? He should start up front. We're playing 2 false nines. So yeah, it's an interesting one. What do you think, mate?
Well, so I wanted to pose the question to you because I was watching some Man United content about this, and I think somebody made a good point, which was like Ten Hag goes and buys people that he thinks solve a problem, but then still waits for the initial person he has been using in that position to make a mistake before letting the new person in. So it's like, okay, Maguire's crap, you need to buy a new centre-back. You buy De Ligt, but you still keep playing Maguire until Maguire makes a mistake, and then you shift De Ligt in once Maguire's made that mistake. Instead of saying, oh, okay, I already bought this guy because Maguire is not good enough, let's get him in straight away and let's actually give him a chance to fix the mistakes that Maguire would have made. And it's an interesting one. I do think it's a bit harsh because it's the second game of the season, but I wanted to see what you thought of that. Like, does that make sense in your head? Do you think Ten Hag is maybe just too passive of a manager when it comes to those kinds of decisions?
Yeah, I've seen this narrative and I know who you're talking about, and I think is rubbish. I think it's unfair to even put this at any manager because I feel like nearly every single manager doesn't throw their new signings straight into the lineup. I think there's only drastic measures which cause this. So I think obviously people are like, oh, but look, Mazraoui's starting. Why isn't De Ligt starting? Why isn't Xerxes starting? Mazraoui's starting because Shaw and Malacia are permanently or seem like they're permanently cropped. If Shaw or Malacia were fit, he would not have started. And he would be riding the bench with De Ligt and Xerxes. And if you look at Arsenal, Calafiori's come on off the bench. I know you guys have got a much better defence and people might point towards that reasoning, but nearly every single time you guys make a signing, they don't go straight into the lineup. Maybe Rice did. But again, that was probably forced because I think Partey was injured at the time. So you know,
it also depends on how much time they've spent with the squad, right? I think De Ligt was a pretty late signing in the transfer window, so he probably has not spent a lot of time with you. I think it'd be different if you'd bought him right at the beginning and he had a whole preseason with you. I feel like maybe there would be somewhat of a difference. Maybe you would start, but that kind of leads me to Xerxes. Like, why isn't Xerxes starting? Right, like Højlund's not playing. You're choosing to play Bruno as like a false, like a false nine with Mount behind him, and it's not really working as well as it could do. Like, why not start Xerxes after that first game where he scores a great goal? And even if he does get, caught offside in this game, he's still doing the things that you want from a striker, which is try and get on the end of a cross, which is, I think, something we've all complained about Rashford and about other strikers in the past. So I guess the question is, if you move away from De Ligt, why isn't Xerxes starting?
What I just said doesn't only apply to De Ligt and Mazraoui, it applies to Xerxes as well. Xerxes, even though the transfer was confirmed earlier than De Ligt and Mazraoui, he was literally at the Euros and came back from holiday like a week earlier than those guys who were just signed. So I think the reason it's impatience, and it's because we didn't win that last game and the Fulham game wasn't comprehensive. If we'd have won both of those games, no United fans with their big fan channels would be whinging about this. None of them. They would not say a peep. They would literally be, oh yeah, we're excited to see them play. They're just being bedded in. This is the right thing to do. You don't want to throw them in there. Because things have been a bit bumpy in terms of the results, or not been as smooth as maybe fans would want, they're losing their heads. And I think it's a ridiculous ask. I understand Hoyland's been injured, so some people could look at that situation as similar to the Mazraoui one, but it's not really, because Hoyland was injured for a lot of last season. Martial was injured for a lot of last season, and we played Bruno in the false nine many times. So it's not like he's creating some weird formation change that we've never done before. It was one that was implemented. And from a performance perspective, I don't think we played badly with that formation and with those players. I actually think Mount's been decent off the ball. He needs to improve on the ball. And Bruno's been decent again. I know he didn't play well in this game, but I thought he was pretty good in the Fulham game. I feel like generally his form back end of last season, when he was again playing the same thing, don't forget, back end of last season, Hoyland was riding bench too, and we were playing a false nine. I know Mount wasn't the 10 at the time, but we were playing false nine with Bruno. Like, he was playing really well. So I get it. We want to see our new signings, especially if like Xerxes scores a winner in the game before. And I understand. There's frustration and impatience, but I don't think this is something to point at Ten Hag and say he's passive, or say anything personal about Ten Hag about this kind of stuff. 99% of managers do this with their signings, and you just said it, especially in circumstances where they've been signed late. We did the same thing with. I've seen that the Goldbridge stuff about talking about this, and he brings up Casemiro last season too. When was Casemiro signed? After game week 3, after game week 2, when we lost 2 games. So he had no preseason, and he was coming into a team that played like completely different style to Real Madrid, in a different pace and everything like that. Like, just come on, guys. Like, you use your brain. Like, it's not being done because he's passive. It's being done because these players haven't had a chance, like you said, to, number one, train and play with the team and get used to their teammates in a new league, which is completely different than the leagues they've been playing in. None of those 3 signings played in the Prem. It might be different, and I reckon it is different if you buy a Rice from West Ham. He's got nothing to get used to really, other than maybe style of play, but he knows the tempo, he knows the opponents, he knows what to expect. These 3 guys don't know what to expect, and that's why I feel like Mazraoui deserves probably a bit more credit, because he's come into it like cold and he's done pretty well. So yeah, I don't add anything to that. I do hope we do see them in the starting lineup very soon, but I'm not going to hammer it for 2 games. If this is like 6, 7, 8 games in the season, we can revisit this, and I think my reaction will be different. But after 2 or 3 games, I'm chill about it.
All right, I get that. That makes sense. I think we'll move on now. I think we'll see. You've got a very hard game next week, so we'll talk about that a little bit later with the previews and whether you think, who you think will start for that one.